My name is Chenjepa. I'm a programs officer with Gen and Media Connect, and I would like to welcome you all to our Zoom meeting, where we're going to be focusing on the role of media in elections as a point of access to information for women. So basically what we're going to be learning today and discussing about is how media can play a role in these elections that are coming. We all know that we've got by-elections that are coming this Saturday. So we just want to know the role of media, how it can help women as a point of access to information, how they can get information on the candidates that they want to vote for, how they can get information on how they can vote, and also where the polling stations are, and information, anything that is in regards to elections. So this is the platform that we have created for you so that you can get more information on those issues. And we're going to be having very seasoned people with very good experience in these topics to do with elections and media. So without wasting much of our time, I'm going to leave it to Mr. Masuku, who's going to be our facilitator for the day. Please feel free to ask any questions. If you don't understand anything, put it in the chat box so that you can get more understanding. We want to make this meeting very fruitful. We want people to have information that will help them in the upcoming elections. And one objective that we also want you to know is we want to ensure that when we give you this information, you are also supposed to go and share it with other community members that you are living with, so that they also know how to access information and also how to use the media as a point of access to information. So again, without wasting much of your time, I'm going to ask Mr. Masuku to get into the program. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kudzai. Hello, everyone. It's so exciting to see old friends that we've not interacted with in such a long time. I greet you all. And as Kudzai says, I hope that we're going to have an exciting time together discussing the role of media in elections, particularly in the development of women in that area, you know, as they participate in the elections. So we've got some presenters who are going to be presenting after me, who are going to be expanding on some of the points that I'm going to raise as a matter of introduction. And then thereafter, we are also going to have the time to interact, where you'll be asking questions and the presenters will be answering them, or where possible, Gen and Media Connect would also do the same. So this topic, the role of media for women in elections as a point of access to information, is very critical, because the media is the one that gives information. The media is a public educator, it's a watchdog, it's a campaign platform, and also it's an open forum for debate. So it is important that women have access to such a facility so that they can also participate. And by the participation of women, there are some who are discussing and it's filtering through. If they could just close their mics, because we can hear some discussions here. So what is important nowadays is that when we're talking about women in elections, we are not only talking about them as voters only, but as candidates. Increasingly, we are having a number of women candidates participating in elections, and thanks to the media, which have been putting them in the forefront, so that people do appreciate that women also have a lot to contribute. So in this discussion, I'm going to be looking at both, that is the potential women candidates as well as the voters. Now, first and foremost, it's important that we understand our media. You know, when we're in Zimbabwe, what is our media? We should know which radio stations we've got, which newspapers we've got, and what social media we've got. So radio, television, newspapers, and social media are very, very important. But as we know, some of them have got limitations, particularly when it comes to outlying areas, like in the rural areas, where you cannot even access some radio stations and some TV stations. So WhatsApp media or the messenger plays a very, very critical role in exchanging information. So it's very important that people exchange truthful information that can help them. This is why Gender and Media Connect has been conducting workshops to assist media to reach women regarding how they can present themselves as candidates in parliament or in the councils and so forth. And also, we'd like to congratulate some of you here who have been licensed to operate community radio stations, and that is going to go a very long way in helping access to information in many parts of the country, because community media will be more focused than national media, which just browses through some of the issues that are happening in your communities. So community media will have enough time to talk about the candidates in your area. It will have enough time to talk about polling stations. It will have adequate time to talk about so many things without much limit that you get from the public media. So what is it that people will be expecting? Educating voters on how to exercise their democratic rights. So the women also included, they have to know that they are also participants. It's not only for men, and also there are some issues that affect them, which they have to put across and make sure that they choose candidates that are going to deal with some of those issues. So that is why it's important to have voter education and also to get information on who is intending to represent them, and they get to understand whether that is the right person who can truly represent them and also fulfill some of their wishes. Media also reports on the development of the election campaign. You want to know how the campaign is going on, what the candidates are saying from different political parties, so that you get an informed view.
Normally how it works, isn't it?
There's
I feel about but if he gets the job done, I'm not going to be upset. Nice.
Okay, I'll continue. Then, yeah, political parties will have a platform on the media to talk about their manifestos and how they expect to improve the area or the constituencies where different women are located. So media should be a platform for everyone. And in the past, women were not partaking in most of these discussions, but thanks to some of the education that we have received from organizations like Gender Media Connect, there are more participants that are taking part in these debates, and also there's that interest of registering as candidates. I know GMC has been playing that big role, as well as Women in Politics Support Unit, WIPSU, has also been playing that big role, and ZESMI itself has also been playing that role of encouraging women. And as the election goes on, it's important that women also receive information about the results and the vote counting, so that they're satisfied with the whole process. And also, access to information will make them, be able to scrutinize in case one was a candidate and they could not make it. So if they are receiving all this information in the media, they will be able to scrutinize the information and see where they had weaknesses and where they can improve in future. What is also important, especially with the work that Gender and Media Connect has been doing, I've been fortunate for quite a number of years. I was on the board of GMC, and one of the books that GMC produces is called Counting the Gains, Women Leaders, the Footprints. So books like this are very important in that they profile some of the women in parliament I'm not sure whether local authorities are also included, but these are the women who have been elected. And it also gives encouragement to the girl child and other women that if others have done it, we can also do it. So I hope this book is being circulated far and wide so that it can encourage young women and others who are interested in participating in politics. There's also Gender Media Connect, Media Skills Coaching Handbook. I'm glad to have participated in this one, especially on the radio and television side, where we also met women parliamentarians and the councillors and educated them about how they can package their information about themselves, as well as information about their campaigns, so that it reaches, the potential voters effectively. So I see Gender Media Connect also put together those papers and came up with a booklet, Media Skills Coaching Handbook, a guide for women. All these are very useful tools for women to access information. I also saw another one. Again, most of these are a result of some of the workshops that are held by GMC. And the one that I'm talking about is actually teaching women about how to use social media like Facebook, WhatsApp, and so forth appropriately. Because at times we do use social media, but to no effective result, because we'll just be joking and sharing information from others. But it's important, even when we are posting something on WhatsApp or Facebook or somewhere, to post it in such a way that whatever you're posting is a positive effect to those who are reading. And as a result, they can be able to follow you, they can be able to understand what is at stake in the elections and so forth. So yeah, that is what the media can do for women. I've explained which media we have, about the education of voters, the reporting of the development of the election campaign, the provision of platforms for political parties, candidates in order to take part. As you know, Gender Media Connect does not choose any party. I've participated in most of their workshops where women from different parties come to learn about how to use media, about how to access information, and about how to disseminate information. They'll be coming from different parties, but it will be up to them after such workshops, when they've got the skills, to then go back and be able to campaign very skillfully. So, and then I will also talked about information about results and vote counting and scrutinizing the electoral process itself, including election management. And then I emphasized a lot about the importance of profiling women in your communities, so that it's known. You'll excuse me, I had some flu in the last few days, so that women are well known. As they are voted for, you know that we are voting for so and so because she has got these skills and qualifications and abilities. So profiling of our girl children, even when they're still at school and they're doing well, is very important. And even the work of women in our communities, so that when it comes to elections, we are not surprised. You say, who is this one? What has she done before? But if their work has been profiled over the years, it's easy for people to say, that is the right candidate who would want to represent us in parliament or in council. So, and I've also talked about hailing the licensing of the first 14 community radio stations, and I know Baz is still doing that. We also have community newspapers, by the way, which we have to use. Ranga is here, he's a specialist in that area. Maybe he's going to touch on that when he's doing fact checking. And we also have the community WhatsApp groups, whether you come from Kanye, Ganga. I know there's that community WhatsApp group where you exchange information, whether you are from Jirezi or you are from Depe and so forth. So those are very important. And let's make sure that we disseminate useful information there than dwelling on useless things all the time. Right. I would like now to introduce the speakers who are going to be sharing with us, who are going to be expanding on some of the issues check information to make sure that we don't share information that is full of falsehoods and so forth. And then finally, we'll then have a discussion and see what recommendations we can make going forward and so forth. I think that's the program for now. Hello, colleagues. I'm just being informed by Kutsi here that we had lost sound. So I'm going to repeat a few things so that we are together if we did lose sound. I was saying that this now is an opportunity to introduce our speakers who are going to be sharing some of the tips that are very useful for women participating in elections and the role of the media in that regard. I had said that we are going to have Victoria Rushidzo, who is the editor of the Sunday Mail, who is going to look at the question, do women understand how the media works? And I had said that in some of the training programs that I've conducted for gender and media connection with my friend Christian, we did realize that women parliamentarians and councillors did not know, first of all, they didn't even know the media landscape in Zimbabwe. And also how they can use a particular media at an appropriate time, because there's a time when you want to put something in the Sunday Mail and you think it will be most effective. There's a time when you want to put it on radio, and there's a time when you just want to share it on WhatsApp. So this is the kind of literacy that is important for women to understand in the usage of the media. At times you see a message, be it on WhatsApp or someone, and you really feel that, oh, this message would have been more effective if it had been put in such media. And you can then tell that it is because of the lack of understanding of the effectiveness of a particular media. Or even language itself. You want to put a message in Tepe, you want to put it to Muganga and so forth, and you fail to recognize that the majority of the people in those areas speak a certain language, and you put it in a different language. Obviously, you are not using the media effectively. You are not understanding the power of the media. So understand the power of the media, understand your audience. That's why even there's media research where you get to understand your audience. There's also a way of understanding even your scheduling of program or even your circulation of newspapers. And then, Emilia Budo will be talking about social media and women political participation. I'd also say that Lagambe is going to be talking about fact-checking information. He's an expert in that area. And as you know that there's a lot of information shared on the social media, which is false, it would share tantamount to hate language. So Raga is going to be giving us on how we can identify the false information and how we should not spend time, sharing false information. When I see some false information being shared by media practitioners and stuff, so make sure that you are, as a media practitioner, you don't get into the habit of sharing false information. So Raga will help us in that regard. And then thereafter, there's going to be fact-checking. So sorry, there's going to be a discussion and recommendations that have to come out of Zoom meeting. So I'll be leading that. So I hope you got this preamble of why we are meeting and the summary of the overview that I gave you in order for you to fully understand what it is all about, so that you participate in a more informed manner. And I've already congratulated those of you who were given community licenses, and wish those whose applications fail to be considered the best news. That way, the communities who've not done registrations, it is going to be easy to disseminate information. It's going to be easy for women to actually participate in those radio programs in a much bigger way than what they do on national radio. So without much ado, I'm now going to invite editor of the Sunday Mail, my dear sister Victoria Ruzingo, who is going to be sharing for the she's good here, how we understand the media. The question, do we understand how the media works? So it's over to you, Victoria.
Thank you very much, my big brother John, and good morning everyone on this platform. There are so many noises coming from people who have not muted their mics. Can something be done so that we can understand each other?
I'm trying to, yes, I'm trying to mute the, right, thank you. It's done.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you to John, to Kudzi, to GMC, and to everyone. It feels good and exciting to be here. These are very challenging, sensitive, and exciting times too, election times. Pre-elections, during elections, and post-elections are always marked by a hive of activity as candidates jostle to win while supporters are busy campaigning, singing, and trying all they can to support their candidates to ensure that they win. So I'm going to be sharing my presentation right now. It's in PowerPoint format. So let me begin to share. However, it says the host is disabled my sharing, so I'll just present without sharing it. I'll try to be as audible as possible. As what John said, my topic reads, do women understand how the media works? So my answer to that, I'll give it as we go. So what I thought of doing was to, first of all, share with you the media landscape in Zimbabwe, the major media houses. I must apologize if I leave out any, but these are just some of the media houses that we have. In terms of public media, we've got Zimbabwe newspapers. I belong to that stable as editor of the Sunday Mail. Then we have ZBC Holdings. We also have Newsiana. Under Zim papers, we have quite a number of newspapers, 13 newspaper titles. We also have a TV network, ZTN. We have radio stations, 2 in Harare, then 1 in Kariba, and another in Mutare. Then ZBC also has a TV station. As we all know, for long it has been the only TV station that we had. And also radio stations. Then we have Newsiana, which is a news agency which distributes news locally and internationally. And under the ambit now they have community newspapers, Anachaminyuka News in Marondera, some papers in Gweru, in Masvingo, in almost all the provinces. Then in terms of the private media, we have Alpha Media Holdings, Newsday, Standard, and the Independent. We have the Associated Newspapers of Zimbabwe, the Daily News, the Financial Gazette. We also have AB Communications, which is a ZFM Stereo, the Business Times newspaper, and other community radios, and quite a number of other other media that fall under that. We also have digital media now. We have so many online news platforms that have come up online in terms of TV, in terms of radio, even in terms of newsletters and all sorts. So yeah, the media landscape in Zimbabwe is really changing. We have traditional media, under which falls newspapers, magazines, radios, televisions, like I've just intimated. Then we have the digital media, websites, Facebook, Twitter, online TV, radio, and magazines, like I said. So this is to show that for our politicians, both male and female, there is so many platforms through which they can campaign, through which they can get information, through which they can get results and support even as they run for office. So if you look at that, I'll come to answering that question that I've been given to answer. But firstly, let me just look at the general role of media in elections particularly. We all appreciate that the media plays a central role in information dissemination, be it for the voters, be it for those that want to be elected in office. The media is the one that disseminates information. We can even say for everyone to have then known about the day of the elections, like the by-elections that come up on Saturday, it had to be communicated via the media platforms. What I've always said is that when news or information is relayed within the four walls of a building, it takes the media for it to go out to the various publics. So the media plays a critical role there in disseminating information. Earlier on, John was speaking about voters needing to know where are the polling stations, who are the candidates that we are voting for, which parties are going to participate. We might have 21 parties, but are all those parties going to participate? We have ZANU-PF participating, CCC, MDC, in their various forms. So this all comes to bear and comes to the fore via the media. Hence, the media plays a critical role in that. We are all aware that the media is referred to as the fourth estate. This demonstrates the importance which is assigned to the media and the status and influence that it has with the executive, the legislature, the judiciary, and then the media. So indeed, it plays a critical role. Media plays a watchdog role, an accountability role. It is there to encourage debate. It is there to question certain processes or certain systems. It is there to lay bare profiles of the various candidates that are competing. It can even tell you that this one qualifies, this one doesn't, depending on whatever background information that they might have. The media can then tell you, are there enough polling stations for people to vote? Is there enough time? If they've said it's 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., is that time adequate this time around, given COVID and the way it has slowed some processes, the social distancing and all? So will 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. be enough time? The media plays that role of ensuring that it interrogates systems, it interrogates processes. It provides an avenue through which candidates communicate with the electorate and vice versa. Candidates want to be heard so that people can decide whether they will vote for them or not. The electorate has to be adequately informed about a certain candidate who they may want to vote for, or all the candidates, so that they can choose on who to vote. So the media plays that role where you've seen some newspapers, radios, and TV stations publishing adverts or stories, profile stories of the various candidates and their manifestos. What are they offering the electorate if they are voted into office? What issues, what challenges are they hoping to address? All that plays out in the media. It also then encourages debate about all sorts of things. I remember last year and the year before, there was so much debate on whether the elections, the by-election should be held even during the COVID, the times when COVID was really hitting the hardest, or we had to wait. There were political aspects and connotations relating even just to deciding on the date when it should be held. So that plays out in the media. The media brings also the world closer to home. As you know, we are not an island, and the world is now turned into a global village. We need to know what other regions or other players in the region, how they are conducting their elections, what lessons we should learn, what trends we should learn. All that comes through the media, which then brings all that information, the analytical pieces. If elections were held in Zambia during COVID times, so what lessons can Zimbabwe learn from those that were held in Zambia? How did they manage to ensure that the elections were not a super spreader? So that comes also via the media. The media keeps the electorate abreast of issues. Like I'm telling you, the various trends and everything that is happening, even within that, which parties are campaigning in which provinces, who is in Gokwe this weekend, who is where this other weekend, all that comes via the media. So it plays a central role. In fact, it is the primary giver of information about elections and anything else happening within our environment. Media also helps shape opinion about the various parties that are competing, opinion about the various candidates that are competing, opinion about so many developmental issues that are assigned or attached to elections. So the question that then comes is, do women understand how the media works? I will say yes emphatically, and I'll also say no emphatically. So it's almost like a 50-50. But in fact, it's leaning more towards the no part. Research has shown that women are not as informed about the media, how it operates, and the benefits even of operating in the media. Sometimes you can understand them because media has dealt women a heavy blow. The media spaces are full of biases and stereotypes about women. So some candidates, some voters, then get so scared about the media because they fear they'll be portrayed in the wrong manner. If I'm a candidate and I want to be voted into power, if I'm not too happy with the media, then I don't know if it is safe for me to go into the media space or I'll attract brickbats. So that has been a challenge, and that has also sort of discouraged women from participating actively in the media. Statistics show that globally, only 20% of the news, women constitute only 24% of the news, and yet they constitute half the population. This shows you how much women issues and women themselves are kept out of the media. Like I said, the biases, the stereotypes. It's also a patriarchal society where issues are more leaning towards men. Development is associated more with men than with women. Hence, media uses men as their sources, men as source of news, men as the candidates or the major players who are in the main arena, delegating women just to the periphery. Like I said, the mistrust by women due to their past experience also has an effect on how much they participate in the media or how much they know about the media. Another issue is that the newsrooms themselves have remained male-dominated. This means that the slant is also towards covering men's issues, amplifying men's voices, putting forward male names about positions, official positions, about candidates, about all sorts of things. Women are also, even outside the negative, that's publicity that they sometimes get, women are also media shy. In general, they don't want to speak. They are not forthcoming. I remember at a time when I was still on the Herald as managing editor, we came up with a directory of names. We said we were looking for female economists whom we could interview when we have issues to do with the economy, women politicians, in health, in everything at universities. But having all those names and numbers did not change the situation, because you would then phone a woman and they would not want to speak. Some would say, let me consult first if my husband will allow me to speak, or let me just check with my family if it's okay for me to respond. And yet with men, it's just a phone call away. You phone, you ask about this political issue. They'll give you the answer there and then. With women, they'll say, I'll come back to you, and they never come back. We've been trying to interrogate why that is the case, but maybe it's also to do with socialization. Women appear unaware of the importance and the power of media. The media is very powerful. I can say that myself. It can make you, it can break you. But in this instance, if you're a candidate running up for political office, you must use the media. It can make you a lot during, as you campaign, as your profile goes out there locally and internationally, everyone begins to know about this particular candidate, what they can offer to the people, what is their manifesto, what are they saying? Because the more information about you plays out in the media, in the public space, the more chances people will know you and remember you when they are in the ballot box. You can then express yourself and people will be impressed. But if you are behind the scenes and quiet, it's really tough for people to vote for you. The Platform for Action at the Beijing conference in 1995 made provisions for women to have access to the media, but sadly this hasn't worked. Organizations such as the UN have also come up with programs to help train women or get them an appreciation of them to understand the media and to know that these are not scary platforms, but actually they help, they add value to your campaigns, they add value to whatever programs and projects that you have. Slowly, things are happening, but at a very slow pace. That is why, like I said earlier on, statistics still show that very few women and women issues are in the paper. And to think that Beijing was 1995, a long time ago, but the effect has not been felt as yet. Also, just generally, women have very little or no interest in the media at all. You find that I have witnessed instances where if you're sitting around, say there are men and women, the man is the one who looks for the newspaper, stretches his hand to get the newspaper and read it. The women will not, the majority of them will not. If it's on TV, women would rather do the Kim Kardashians, the dramas, the African movies, but serious debates and issues to do with the economy, to do with elections, they hardly have time for those. Like I said earlier, it could still have a lot to do with our socialization, but the access to information now should make us realize the importance of the media, but women are still lagging behind big time in that area. So how does the media work? The media is in the business of receiving and disseminating information. They receive information, they can receive it literally through my press conference, through press statements and stuff. And they can also go out there to hunt for news. And that they do every day. Newsrooms come up with diaries in the morning. There are morning conferences that are held at various newspapers, television stations, radio stations, social media, you name it. They do diaries where they list the number of stories or the kind of stories that they're looking for the day. This is maybe outside the events that then come up, which they will have to cover. So as they do their diaries, where does that place women? Like I said, they are placed very negatively, or they are disadvantaged in that most of the issues and their sources of news are men. The journalists and reporters then seek sources of information, say they are writing a story about these impending elections on Saturday. They will look for the officials that be it ZEC, be it other individual candidates, or those that are already in power or in office. They'll look for those. So as they are seeking for sources of information, they have names of women that they may want to get in touch with. We go back to that issue. Most of those women do not want to speak. So they are then left out of the stories because they are not forthcoming with the information. Even if they are so learned, even if they have the information, even if they have the experience, women are kind of timid when it comes to dealing with the media. So what do the media guys do, the journalists, the editors? They work with those that are available because there's a paper to produce. There's a deadline to meet. Newsrooms have deadlines. If it's production of a print version, it's got a certain cutoff time. So if you were approached as a woman, a candidate or woman voter, if they approach you for a story, they send you questions, then you say, I'll come back to you. And then you come back to them after their deadline. It means your story or your opinion will not be in the paper the next morning. You'll find most of the comments coming from male candidates. Newsrooms are also in competition for news. As they're in competition for news, it means whoever gets it first, gets it published first. And we like doing that in the media. In fact, that is what drives us. Newsrooms are actually known as pressure pots, pressure points, because we are always under pressure to meet deadline, to beat deadline. So if women are then lethargic or reluctant to come to the fore, we'll run with those that want to be in the paper. That again then leaves out women and helps in reducing the statistics about women's presence in the media. The women politicians, even if you give them 2 days to respond to questions, they don't respond. But nowadays, because of the advent of social media, the media landscape has changed. We cannot wait today to then publish a story tomorrow morning. It has to go as soon as we get it, it has to go on our various digital platforms. So if you are taking your time to respond, it means you are left behind. But what has happened now in the last few years is that most media houses in this country have now become more gender sensitive. For instance, here at Zim Papers, we have a gender policy. Of course, it's still in its draft stage. It is yet to be fully implemented, but already some of the provisions, we are using them to ensure that we promote women, that we have more space for women. Ideally, we would want it to be a 50-50, but due to the constraints that I've just mentioned, it's not yet 50-50. Every day we actually audit the paper. If it's a daily paper or the daily digital platforms, we audit to see how many stories did we carry about women. How many women sources did we talk to? In this election story, because the election story is the story of the moment, do we have women voices in those stories? Do we have candidates that we are profiling every day? Women candidates, we may profile both men and women, but do we have the women candidates that have come forward so that we can profile them? We are now saying it is mandatory, even in our diary sessions, that we should have women voices. Like for instance, here we say out of every story, out of every 3, we have started to start with out of every 3 sources of news, at least one of them must be a woman. Would want it to be a 2-1 or a 3-or scenario, but we've said for a start, out of every 3, at least one should be a woman. Out of the people, everyone, out of all the people that we employ, at least half of them or a third should be women. These are initiatives that we are making as a media house, but have we achieved those results yet? We haven't, because we are working with a lot of women politicians, women in the economy, women all over who are media shy, as I said, who do not have an appreciation of how the media works, who are also scared because of past experiences. It's a whole potpourri of issues that affect women. During election time, we have given ear to all candidates, but men have been more forthcoming. If you notice, if I may say so myself, or for the Sunday Mail, almost every week we've been profiling women. Thankfully, we managed to get quite a few that came forward, but usually, like I said, it's men that are more forthcoming. So women really need to maximize on the media if they are to make it in politics. There is no way you can run away from the media and expect to be successful. You need the media as a campaign tool, if I may say. As women, while you are planning on the kind of regalia, the quantities of regalia that you are going to make, what other budgets you are putting in place, always know that the media is playing a critical role there. It is through the media where you relay your manifesto, where you tell them about your strength. If it's in Epworth, if it's in Chipinge, if it's in Marondera, you can tell them that in Marondera, I've established these weaknesses, 1, 2, 3, there's no water, there's no proper sewer system. So as a candidate for Marondera, I'm going to ensure that there will be water. I'm going to do 1, 2, 3 to ensure water is there. I'm going to sink 21 balls. How do you communicate that? Via the media, via radio programs, via newspapers, via TV programs, via the social media platforms. So this then demands that women be active in the media. What is the current scenario? In this upcoming by-election, we have 102 males and 16 females contesting the by-elections. So already that tells you a very sad story. 102 males, 16 female. The difference is too huge. And it's about time that something is done for that gap to get smaller and smaller, more women participating. And we all know the benefits of having women in power. I shall not delve into those. In terms of our ministerial lineup, we have 6 female ministers against 16 male. You see, it's a whole chain, it's a whole process. If we start by not having the women from which the president can choose from, then it creates problems. He can't choose women who are not there unless he's using some of the statutes where he's got the freedom to appoint other women. But ordinarily, women councillors are important to have, women members of parliament, so that from that bunch of women, ministers can be chosen. Provincial leaders, provincial heads can be chosen. In Zimbabwe, 32%, there's a 32% female representation in the House of Assembly. Then I also took a look at the region so that to put into perspective where we stand and why we need to really up our game as women politicians, as women leaders of tomorrow. South Africa has 45% female representation, Mozambique 45 again, Malawi has 22%, Zambia 18%, Botswana 10% in the lower house. Rwanda is the major exception. Rwanda is the highest proportion of women, not just in Africa, in the world actually, at 64%. That's a good plus. And I've interacted with some of these women. The last time I went to Rwanda, we saw ministers coming, the minister of these key portfolios. They were all women, and it really got me excited. And I know Zimbabwe can do this too. Eswatini is the one with the lowest in both East and Southern Africa, and the world at large, it's got 7%. So that's a challenge. So from my perspective, what would be the way forward? How can we make women understand the media, how the media works? How can we make women appreciate the need and importance of playing it out in the media space, just like their male counterparts? As a way forward, I've proposed that media itself needs to be more proactive in promoting gender equality. We can't keep having these biases and stereotypes of a long time ago. We are in the modern world and things are changing. So we need to move with the changes. We need to begin to appreciate that women can also occupy these important roles of being MPs, of being councillors, of being ministers, of being presidents. Only yesterday I was in a webinar with a few former presidents and current prime ministers, where I got to appreciate that in Africa, I think over the last 2 decades or so, we've only had 22 women who've been heads of state or heads of government. So it means just 22 women presidents and prime ministers. So the figure is too low if we look at how many women are on this continent. I'm also saying the gender policies must be activated. I know of a number of media houses which have draft gender policies. But once these are activated, because they are now presently they are lying dormant, if they're activated, that could also help ensure that we have more women issues and women covered in our media. We should take deliberate steps to remove the biases and stereotypes, like what I've said. Because if you notice about women, when they are being say introduced as a candidate in the media, sometimes they'll tell you their marital status. And yet for men, they are not concerned about their marital status, whether he's married, whether he's divorced, or whether he's single. But for women, you will hear in the newspaper that she is single. She's a single mother of 2. And this was mentioned in very derogatory tones. Like I said earlier, that is why maybe some women shy away. They begin to talk a lot about how those women dress, but we've not heard much about how women, about how men dress as a factor in trying to see if we can vote for them or not. So these are issues that we really have to be redressed. We also need more women to join newsrooms, because the more women we have in the media itself, the better the women issues are tabled or brought to the fore. Journalists also need to be trained on gender issues. And when we speak of journalists, we are not just talking about the reporters, the photographers, but it must start right through from the editors themselves, so that even when they are clearing copy, they have a better understanding of the subject that is at hand. Hence, they can then edit it well or add value to it, and they can change the complexion of their newspapers, the complexion of their content in radio, television, and on the social media. Then the women themselves, the women politicians should be more aggressive and forthcoming in dealing with the media. There is no harm. We get a lot of calls from their male counterparts wanting to be interviewed, wanting to express their point of view on an issue, wanting to have their manifesto laid out in our various media. Sometimes they initiate. Sometimes, of course, as journalists, we go look for them because they make news. But sometimes they take the step themselves. So women need to be more aggressive in this regard and to be more forthcoming. If a reporter is looking for you for a certain comment, it doesn't kill for you to give them that comment, unless it's a subject that you are not comfortable with. But then there shouldn't be any subject that we are not comfortable with as women, as long as we want to occupy these public spaces. We should be able to really speak and give responses. The women politicians also need training in dealing with the media. Sometimes women tend to be confrontational. Men too, they can be that a lot. But women, sometimes you want to talk to them. The way they resist the reporter or the journalist, and sometimes even the diction, the language that they use is not so pleasant. So it is important that women are trained on how to deal with the media. And when a woman or anyone else in the media, if you say no comment, if it's an issue involving you or your organization or your party, if you say no comment, us in the media who love that comment, it's a very good comment. Because when you say no comment, you are saying it's the truth. So we will write, she said no comment, or he said no comment. And that we normally write at the end of the story, after we've given the juicy parts and people are excited about it. There's also need for training of female politicians, potential politicians, in confidence building. Sometimes the women shy away from the media, not necessarily because they don't appreciate the importance of the media, but because they just don't have the confidence. They are not sure. I don't know what I'll speak about. Is this right? Must I say this? Because they are a bit timid. They are not confident. So training in confidence boosting strategies, confidence building strategies will certainly help change the landscape. Mentorship is also critical. Even within the political frame, we have a lot of women who've been at it for a long time. We have very experienced women, some right from the days of the liberation struggle, some that have come up over the last few decades, who can then hold the hands of the new politician, someone who's trying their luck maybe for the first time, for the second time in politics. So if there's a mentorship program, it can then help those other women. Because like I told you, of course, the bulk of the women do not want to speak, but we have other women who are very forceful, who are very excitable when you phone them. They'll either call you, come, let's talk, or they'll say, okay, phone me after 30 minutes, and they'll give you a brilliant, brilliant story. So if the new politicians are paired with those experienced and more confident women, it will also help build their character or their perspective. And that helps, and that carries the day. Also, developing an interest in the media is not harmful. The media is not a monster. I know I said it can make you, but it can also break you big time. So you need to know how to trade in the media. It has to be careful. You have to be careful as you trade in the media. But developing an interest is very good. Sitting down to watch TV, what others are doing in other countries, being up to date with all information makes you a very good politician. It means you know what people need, you know what the world is at, what is occupying the world, what is occupying the environment within which you are operating, even the constituency in which you want to compete, vote and to be elected into. So that also helps. If you have an interest in the media, it means you always are up to date with information. It then means even if a journalist or reporter phones you, you are able to respond. If they ask you even about Ukraine-Russia war, what effect it might have on elections in Zimbabwe, you are aware of what is happening in Ukraine, so you can respond confidently. But if you are not one who consumes media products, you will have problems. You begin to stammer as you respond to the journalist, or you just cut your phone like what some of the women do. So if you have an interest in the media, even how the media is made up, who owns this newspaper, who owns this media house, such information just helps and gives you confidence and puts you in the right place, even as we go towards the by-elections and next year's harmonized elections. So I feel these are issues that we needed to interrogate, to look at as we seek to help women make it in politics via the media, of course. Thank you very much. I end here.
We would like to thank Victoria for that elaborate explanation in answer to the question, do women understand how the media works? What's important about Victoria's presentation is that she started off by giving us an overview so that we know our media, because at times we don't know what we own. We don't know what we possess. The media is ours. We only know maybe 1 or 2 newspapers or 1 or 2 radio stations and nothing else. So it's important to know what the media landscape is like. And then the other thing that she really elaborated about was the electoral process itself and what media should do in interrogating the system and processes for decision making and encouraging debate. So if you know that the media is there to include some of these programs, then it becomes easy for you to use it effectively. Now, she gave a background, especially about how women have been reacting to the media and at times showing some disappointment at how some women have refused to fully utilize the media, even when a hand is reached out to them to say, look here, we are the media and you are a potential candidate and so forth. Come and give us a comment on this, come and give us a comment on that, and they refuse. She talked about the diary that they had, a beautiful diary that they had of women, professionals and so forth. But when it came to commenting about issues, most of them developed cold feet and they did not want to comment. So those are some of the disappointments that Victoria mentioned. But I'm glad that she also said, no, look here, be that as it may, there is a way forward. And she made some very useful recommendations in order to address some of the weaknesses that she had laid out before. I'll just quickly go through some of them. That the media should practice promotion of gender equality, to make it a deliberate process, to, like she said in the newspaper, that they usually analyze regularly how women have been covered, maybe on a weekly basis or on a daily basis. And then she said gender policies should be activated. I'm actually surprised, because long ago when I was on the board of Gender and Media Connect, some of these policies had been drafted, and I've just learned today that they have not been activated. Is it because the media houses are led by men and they are afraid to activate these policies? Yeah, I think let's push these men to activate these policies. They are good policies, and they will help us in the media. Nowadays, even sending your daughter for attachment at a media house, it's so scary, because some of the men there, are like vultures. So these policies will help, to protect those young women who want to make a career in journalism than, experienced editors and so forth, receiving them as they are women and wanting to make them their girlfriends. So I'm glad that my sister Victoria mentioned that, and that should be activated, because I know for sure through another document that was published by Gender and Media Connect that that most of our women journalists are not treated very well in the newsrooms. Probably that's why some of them don't want to continue in journalism. She also made a comment about deliberate steps to move biases and stereotypes, some of them coming from our culture, and we should relook at some of our cultural norms and make sure that we revise those which we think are so oppressive to women. So, and also when women to join the newsroom, yes, I just made a comment about that. Let's make the situation be conducive for them. Let's make them comfortable in the newsroom, that they should not be afraid of their seniors and so forth. I say that with lots of confidence, because it really takes back, it really brings down our profession if we don't encourage that inclusivity, and we look down upon women and just see them as objects that should be used. Then the women politicians need training. I'm glad Gender and Media Connect are doing that, as I told you some of the publications that they have where they've been training women, media skills, coaching handbook, a guide for women, and then counting the gains, women leaders, the footprints. All those books really are good in encouraging women to go into politics. Then mentorship is also very important. Just to sit down with my senior sister like Victoria, just to get to know where she has come from, where she is, and where she's going to. It also helps a young female journalist to understand how things go in the newsroom, and what she has also been doing in order to promote the role of women in politics through her role as the editor. Because at times when people are commenting, they'll say, I read the Sunday Mail, and Victoria does not write anything up, does not promote us. So I'm glad that she really outlined what they are doing in order to profile women candidates who are going to be taking part in some of the elections. Yeah. And then develop an interest in the media. You get to know what is occurring. Yeah, instead of just watching the Nollywood and the other Indian movies and so forth, also get to watch news, get to watch developmental programs, features, and documentaries, and see what is the role of women in those coverages of different developmental issues. And then when you've watched, you will be able to complain, to say, no, I've watched 3 documentaries and none of them has ever had a woman's comment. So it makes a lot of sense if you do that. But anyway, thank you very much, my sister Victoria. And I'm going to give participants an opportunity to ask questions or to make comments about what the editor of the Sunday Mail presented to us. So you can show by lifting of your hands or putting on your microphone, and you straight away go on to ask or to make a comment before we proceed to the next presenter. Any comments and questions, colleagues? Okay, well, if there's none, I'll go on to the next presenter.
Yeah, I see some in the chat box. Not too sure if there are questions there.
Okay, maybe if in the chat box, like yeah, very true. A lot needs to be done in order for us women to understand, embrace, and be familiar with the importance of the media. That's a good one. Then the other one, a lot of confidence building still needed for many women. Thank you for that. That was a Margaret Sangweme making that comment. And then there's another one from ITEL P36. Thanks, Rojidzo, for the presentation. Any other? Yeah. So thank you for those comments. And if there's nothing else, we'll move on to our next presenter, because time is also not on our side since we still have two presenters. Emilia will come for the next 15 minutes talking to us about social media and women political participation. Emilia comes from ZESNI, the Zimbabwe Election Support Network, which really has made a name for itself about educating people about electoral processes in Zimbabwe, right before the elections and during and after the election. So we're really grateful to have an organization like ZESNI, which even the media depend very much on the information that they get from ZESNI. So we're glad that Emilia was able to join us, and she's going to be talking about social media and women political participation. It's over to you, Emilia.
All right, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to come and present on issues to do with social media and women political participation. So as part of the introduction, I would say social media have become increasingly popular, a sure sign that communication and information sharing ways have changed rapidly. This has changed the political landscape by affording those in positions of leadership a chance to engage directly with the people they represent in parliament or at local authority level. This in turn has impacted on electoral processes by changing the channels used by citizens and voters to obtain information, the Electoral Management Board's communication strategies, as well as the platforms where political candidates present their manifestos. I'm sure we've all seen how the Electoral Management Board, ZEC, has been trying to communicate to citizens via Twitter, which is a social media platform, and also through interviews that have been carried out online as well. And we've also seen political candidates presenting their manifestos and their programs using technical channels, which is YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook as well as those same messages are being also distributed or disseminated via WhatsApp. Some of the opportunities that I've identified on social media are that it has offered both men and women a space to exercise their right to freedom of expression and participate in public life as committed citizens, as it offers real-time information in the form of live feeds. We are here on a Gender and Media Connect workshop, which is being live streamed by Slime Media, I'd like to believe. So that alone gives the public an opportunity to keep abreast with what is happening in real time, and also affording them the freedom of expression and the right to participate, in public life. Together with their candidates or their representatives. It has also offered women politicians and candidates a platform to present themselves and their political programs before citizens. I say so because if you've been following on Twitter, the likes of Linda Lilomatic, the likes of Fadzai Mahere, they are present on social media platforms, and also other women in politics. They are present on social media, and this has afforded them a platform to present themselves and what their parties stand for before the citizens, and this has allowed for engagement with their party supporters. In the run-up to the 2018 harmonized elections, Zesny observed that the internet played a significant role by providing an opportunity for the candidates to participate in the political discourse and interacting with their party supporters. Civil society organizations, on the other hand, used it for voter education and mobilization, and online debates were prevalent and reached a wide segment of those with access to the internet. However, we also noted challenges in the run-up to the 2018 harmonized elections. There was coordinated smear campaigns, misinformation and disinformation in order to manipulate public opinion. And unfortunately, some of these things found themselves in the mainstream media. They were from the online to the mainstream media as well. There was unprecedented increase in fake news, dehumanizing of individuals by influencers and their followers. Social media became a toxic platform with hate speech targeted at women in leadership positions at the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, diplomats, and CSOs. And however, due to high cost of data, social media did not effectively serve as an equalizer for female politicians to advance women's participation in politics, as most of them shied away from participating. Social media can also, in as much as it is good, but it can also be a hostile space for women in politics, since there are increased attacks and very limited restrictions to harassment, defamation, and threats. There's the issue of ghosts or bots, which is a huge challenge, since cyber bullies who penetrate online violence against women cannot be easily fished out. Unlike in the mainstream media where they verify their sources of information, here online, there is no room to verify per se, given that a person can just open an account and be a ghost and churn out whatever they want. Yes, an account can be suspended, but the message would have gotten across and served its purpose. And social media does not create desirable behaviors, in the sense that the prevailing political culture has set a very low standard of what is acceptable and unacceptable behavior in politics. There is a lot of sexism and sexist comments to the extent that women are objectified and seen as sex objects. Their contributions are not viewed in any manner other than that, and this has forced many of them to stay away from social media. I'll give an example of Dr. Kupe. If you've been following her account on Twitter, she does not comment that much or at all, because every time there's an issue at hand, she's usually tagged, or a lot of female politicians are usually tagged, including the likes of Joyce Mjuru. They are tagged on this, but they do not comment, because most of the comments that you find there, they are toxic, they are sexist, they are labeled, to the extent that at one point, Ambassador Misia Irab, we had to put on a t-shirt and send a message. And at one of the debates that we hosted, she came wearing that same t-shirt, which had a name which I can't even repeat or even say out. And she said, this is what has been acceptable and this is what has been churned out on social media. And I'm comfortable with that label that they have given me. So as part of the recommendations, we'll say social media is the new norm that we should all embrace, and hence the need to profile women, not focusing on their physical or personal attributes or social life, but what is it that they can bring to the table, not basing it on their social life. There is need to mainstream their communication strategies during their campaigns, since there are high levels of engagement on social media by citizens on election-related matters. Sorry, colleagues, can you hear me? My network had dropped.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. Sorry, apologies about that. So I was saying there is need for effective use of social media in order to help women candidates improve their communication strategies during their campaigns, since there are high levels of engagement on social media by citizens on election-related matters. There is need for paradigm shifts for all stakeholders, especially the norm that politics is a male domain. Women can also lead. And there's also need to come up with targeted messaging, focusing on women. The mainstream media, which has online presence, should also play a part in demystifying some of these gender stereotypes, break the bias and discrimination against women, since the media shapes political discourse in Zimbabwe. I thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Emilia, for that presentation about social media and women political participation. You made some very good points that social media has become increasingly popular in the sharing of information, and that things have really changed. So when we are talking about communication, we are no longer only talking about the traditional mainstream media, but a lot is being shared through social media. And it was good that you mentioned that some of it can be toxic, especially to women leadership. And therefore, we should make sure that we share or we encourage other people to share information that is useful to society, and also to avoid fake news and cyberbullying. Very important point, though. You also mentioned sexism and sexist comments, which is sad because a number of politicians, as you rightly said, no longer participate fully, because even if they come up with a good point, the comments will be about their physical being instead of being about the points that they are raising. And your recommendations also very useful, where you said let's continue to profile women positively, so we can profile them before even they run for political office, so that people already know who they are and what they've done in society. Not on the day of election, someone asking who is she, where is she from, what has she done. So that's a very good point. And also for them to have, those who are going to be running for political office, and to have good communication strategies, because you can have all this media at your disposal, but if you don't have a specific strategy on how you want to reach the electorate, then it won't make any use. You also mentioned targeted messages focusing on women. So at times we have to be deliberate, make messages or create messages that we know they are targeted at women. Make no apologies about that, because if you don't do that, then it won't, give that feeling that we are targeting women in order for them to emancipate. You also mentioned about the paradigm shift. Yeah, a lot of issues in our cultures, need, some paradigm shift, where we, in the past, were looking down upon women that they could not do some of the things. Now, we can only do that when we do good storytelling in the media about the positive things that people may have not imagined that they'll be done by women. So colleagues, if you have a few questions to put across to Emilia, we would welcome them. They can be questions or comments. Looking at the fact that social media is making it easier for all to share information, what can be done to increase women participation without fear of being bullied? I hope you saw that one, Emilia.
Yes, I did. The only unfortunate part that we have is that our social media is not regulated. I think maybe it's difficult for the government to regulate it. And because we all enjoy the freedom or the rights, freedom of expression, it makes it so difficult. I think it can only start with us who are online to come up with campaigns, targeted activism campaigns on the type of messages that we come up with. We have to change the way people use social media. That can only start, the change can start with us who are online. And then we also proliferate the messaging or the campaigns such that there is then safe spaces can be created for women. We can target also women's organizations, you know, in our campaigns. Let's speak with one voice when it comes to this issue on increasing our women's participation. We have to create safe spaces for them or for us, and it's a collective effort.
Yes, thank you very much, Emilia. And I hope, Margaret, your question has been answered. Margaret Sangweme, you had asked that question. If there are any other questions, please go ahead before we give the platform to, oh, there is one. My greatest, that is coming from Jinang Tavaziva Jino. I'm not sure whether you are in Zimbabwe, in China, or where, but Jinang, you are saying my greatest challenge is on the data charges. We might want to use media platforms, but it's so expensive to many of us. That's a very good question, Jinang. Emilia, you want to have a go at that one?
Yes, we do acknowledge that data is very expensive and not everyone is online. Hence, there is need to identify channels that we can work with. Say, for example, there's so many people that are on WhatsApp. We could make use of the WhatsApp platform to, you know, in our messaging or to disseminate our messages. Because we understand that Facebook, in as much as it can be lighter than Zoom, or unlike Twitter, which is Facebook on steroids, not everyone can afford to be on Twitter or Facebook. So we would have to interrogate cheaper methods of going online, because whether we like it or not, online is the new normal. I'm sure we all had a feel of this during the COVID era, where we could not meet physically, where even newspapers were not on the streets because they were like a super spreader for COVID, and even newsrooms were forced to migrate to online. So I think maybe there may be needs to lobby the service providers to look into issues of maybe decreasing their data charges. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Emilia. And I hope, Jinang, your question has been answered. In fact, while Emilia was making that presentation, I thought of the resources that are found at Gender Media Connect, and I know some of them also appear on their website. And you should make use of them, because these are very useful resources that are put together by experts, as well as put together by experts, as well as Gender Media Connect itself, from their experience in dealing with women in the media. I have a booklet here called Media Skills for Women Using Digital Platforms, a practical guide. So when you pass through the office one of the days, you can ask for that, because it gives very simple explanation about how you can use social media effectively. You know, you may think that you know how to use social media, but maybe you only have about 40% of the knowledge. So it was a topic about what is WhatsApp, how to send a message, making a WhatsApp call, video call, or conference call, what is Facebook, digital tips, and so forth. So these are some of the most useful resources that you can get at Gender Media Connect in order for you to improve on some of the issues that we're discussing today. Let me see if we have any other, no, except Amanda, who is thanking Emilia, and Margaret Murima Pabre. We need to educate all women candidates to use social media so that they can reach everyone and they will know their manifestos. Yes, that's very important. That's a very important point, which was also emphasized by Emilia, and even Victoria made mention of that. So I think those are the questions and comments that we have for now. And we would like to thank Emilia Bundo from the Zimbabwe Electoral Support Network, ZESNI, for her overview about how the social media and women political participation, and also for the recommendations that she made in order to improve in that area. And I'll now move on to Rangamberi, who is an expert in fact-checking information. I think in all our presentations, what has come out is that as we communicate, there are others who communicate falsehoods, very dangerous information, and we should guard against that. In fact, I did mention earlier on that it is sad at times to see media practitioners of repute forwarding false information, forwarding toxic messages and so forth. So we should maintain our dignity, because people, despite what comes out on social media, I can tell you, people still respect us as trained journalists. And I'm glad that we've also trained, reputable citizen journalists. No, so let's stick to that, because even if the information comes out on social media, people will always want to check with us, as the mainstream media, to say, is this correct or not? But like I said, let's desist from sharing that information ourselves that is false. So Ranga, this is your opportunity to share with us about how to check, to fact check information. It's over to you.
Thank you very much to everyone. Trying to share my presentation. Oh, sorry, sorry. Okay, well, that gets sorted. I think it's pretty important and pretty obvious from what John and other speakers have been saying. We are living in a very difficult and tricky sort of condition where everyone is now, a news source. So the trick really is to find out really who is a credible source and who is not. So why do we fact check elections? Sorry, I still can't share, but I'll just go on and try as I go along. Oh, here we go. Let me try. Can you see the presentation? Please confirm.
Yes, we can, Ranga.
Oh, great. Thanks. Excellent. So that's where we are. Why do we fact check elections? The number one reason is something that we all know. Politicians really lie, and they do that for a living. So it doesn't matter what persuasion, what color regalia that they wear, whether it's green or it's yellow or it's red. Politicians, when they are in front of people, they tell lies, and that's exactly how they advance in their trade. So it's our jobs as journalists and fact checkers to call them out on their lies, and so that at least reporters be the bulwark between journalists, between politicians and voters. We all have our biases. We might be reporters, we might be fact checkers, but the fact is that we all have our biases. So it's important to set these aside when we report. I think Victoria spoke quite eloquently about this, that there's an issue on in our newsrooms in terms of how we report elections. So that's one of the issues we'll speak about. So we also fact check because we need to maintain the integrity of the election processes. If the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, for instance, makes a claim that doesn't stand to scrutiny or that is unconstitutional, it's our job as reporters and fact checkers to call them out. And if someone actually also makes a false claim against ZEC, equally to be able to call them out, so that we have accountability of election bodies, politicians, and also check all the promises. For example, right now we've seen a lot of promises, and we'll be running some of them on our Zimfact website. The promises that have been made in the run-up to the by-election. to say we're going to give you this and that, we're going to give you title deeds, we're going to improve service delivery in this area. So we always need to fact check within the period. If the government, if ZANU-PF, for instance, says we're going to deliver 2 million jobs by 2025, when 2025 comes, we need to check the numbers from Zimstat, from NASA, to see how many jobs have been created and whether that tallies with what ZANU-PF promised in the last election. So this is what we're dealing with when we're talking about fact checking. There are three kind of things that we look at: disinformation, misinformation, and malinformation. And I'll go quickly into just talking about what these are. Disinformation is something that people do intentionally. Like I said earlier, people lie intentionally and they create false information intentionally with an intention to whether to discredit an opponent or to embellish their own record. So people actually create false information intentionally, and that's disinformation. We see a lot of this on social media these days. And then there's misinformation. Misinformation is something that possibly that you would share without knowing that it's actually false, and it can be intentional, but for the most part, it's something that you actually do not know. So you just share because you think it's true, and then it spreads on WhatsApp or Twitter or Facebook or whatever social media you're using. Malinformation, it's something that can be false, but can also be true. But then I can use that information to discredit someone. For instance, if I have sensitive pictures that I have of someone, I can use that against them. And that's an example of malinformation. So I'll just take you through the fact-checking steps. When we get information on our WhatsApp, what exactly do we have to look out for? I'll just do a quick rundown of this. Number one is always check the source. What else does that person talk about? Is it a credible source? And then verify with other sources. One of the most dangerous things that you can do as a journalist is to just take one source and take it as gospel. And I think it's one of the most basic things about journalism is that never use one source, unless, of course, it's a speech, in which case it doesn't work for election reporting because you have to verify some of the claims that politicians do. Check the dates. I mean, we get a lot of information these days, but we don't know whether this is a recent picture that we are being sent. We've seen this in terms of coverage of rallies. People will say, look at the number of people that were at our rally, but they don't tell you whether it's today's rally or it was a rally last week or it was a rally from 2013. So we always have to look out for that. And the context as well, like I'm saying, is the context correct? When I'm covering a rally and people said there were no people, there was a lot of people at our rallies, but we've seen all the politicians, all the parties have been doing this. They take pictures from a different angle that is meant to make you think like there was 50,000 people at a rally when in fact they were not. So it's always important to check the context. And this, for me, is one of the most important things. Check your own biases. Like I was saying earlier, we all have parties and politicians that we're a bit partial to, but this should not interfere with our work. People tend to believe what they already believe. If I hear that a ballot box has been spotted in Murewa, even if that ballot box looks nothing like what the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission uses, I still believe it because I already believe that ZEC cheats during elections. So I don't check that as a journalist. I just post it and say, look, those guys have started. So these are the things that we really need to look out for as fact checkers. So just to repeat, politicians lie as a rule, as a profession. So they lie even more during elections. So you can see here what Donald Trump was talking about when he found out that he was losing. He was spreading a lot of misinformation to the extent that Twitter and other platforms, as they say, deplatformed him. They removed him from their platforms. This is not unique to Donald Trump. It's the same everywhere, really. So what are the things that we fact check? We fact check quotes, we fact check even videos and pictures and documents. And let me just take you through a quick example here. I think a lot of us will remember this. In Zimbabwe voted in Shirezi. This was in Shirezi North during the 2018 election. So what happened was that this image started circulating widely on WhatsApp, Twitter, Facebook, and it purported to show that there were more voters than there were more votes in Shirezi North in the V11 there on your left. There were more votes than registered voters. So what this claimed to show was that Shirezi North has 30,688 registered voters. But how come the votes on the V11 on your left there, they were easily more than 40,000 voters. So I think a lot of us will remember this incident. So up to now, people are saying Zimbabwe vote out Shirezi and so forth because of that V11. But if you get back to what I was saying earlier, context is always important. So if you just take this image and circulate it as it is, it's evidence that people were rigged in Shirezi North. But then what really was happening here, if you check the numbers, to go to the next slide, it turns out that the 30,688 registered voters in the second image there were from a previous voters roll. It was 2005 voters roll. So what someone did was just take a screenshot of the 2005 voters roll and marry it with a V11 from the 2018 election. So someone who does not research will not know that, in fact, in 2018, there were more than 50,000 registered voters in Shirezi North and not 30,688 as claimed in that screenshot. So these are some of the important things that we are going to come across as we cover elections. People are going to be taking figures and using them out of context. So we always have to check on that. Another thing we have to look at, presidential elections or by-elections. A lot of things will be said, and one of the things that, an example that happened in 2018, people were saying that the Zimbabwe Electoral Support Network had called a meeting to denounce or renounce their report on the 2018 election. What had happened was that ZESIN in 2018, after the election, they put out a statement saying that the election results that ZEC had put out was within a range of their own estimates. And the estimates was from a survey that they did of a sample-based observation of a certain number of polling stations. So they put out their statement. It caused a lot of noise because a lot of people didn't agree with it, as you would imagine, because it's kind of like endorsed the ZEC election outcome. So people started saying, no, ZESIN is in fact now going back on their word, but this was not true. So what do you do in this case? Obviously, the first port of call is to go to ZESIN themselves and ask them if they've called a meeting to cancel their own election observation report. So obviously this turned out to be false, but these are some of the false flags that we're going to be facing as we cover election. Here's another example of, did he say that or did he not? The Herald ran an that headline saying, "I can impregnate any woman," says Chamisa. I think some of you guys might remember this. So Herald, this was the intro. They said the MDC Alliance leader Nelson Chamisa said yesterday that he was young and could impregnate any woman to prove how energetic he was, in yet another show of sexism. But if you review the video of what Chamisa actually said, he said nothing of the sort. What he actually said, he was speaking in Lower Gweru and Vungu. He says, we want Vungu to be developed so that people do not have to go to Harare, Gweru, or Bulawayo to access services. But for us to get to that point, you need a new leader, a young man. Does anyone here doubt that if you give me the opportunity, I will score? This is what Chamisa actually said. So it's quite a gap between what he said and what Herald actually reported. But, you know, by the time you try to correct that, it has been widely circulated. The headline has gone viral and screenshots have been circulated, because we live in a society where people do not actually read. I think we were talking about data prices earlier. That's one of the reasons, obviously, but generally people do not read. They just go with visual stimulation to say, this is what Chamisa said. So automatically, you remember what I said, that if you are biased against something, you tend to believe it. So if I am a ZANU-PF supporter and I don't like Chamisa, automatically I believe this. And so this is some of the things that we are going to face. So what you do in the instance where you want to check whether what Herald said is accurate or not, we had to go and sit through the whole campaign video of Chamisa speaking to really check whether he actually said that. And it turned out, obviously, that he didn't. And this is another example of something that we always hear being told. I don't know whether if I played it, you'd be able to. Can you hear anything here?
No, we can't.
Okay, cool. Okay, I'll just explain what the video is saying. So this is a video that has gone viral for many years now. So this is an interview that ED gave to, I think it was at Capitalk on the economy. And the context here is that this was 2019 when the government had just removed the one-to-one, what did they call it by that time? Mighty gauge, right? One-to-one parity US dollar versus the Zimbabwe dollar, the bond, as they called it at the time. And then, sorry. So he went on that interview, and then he said, can you hear me? I can hear noise in the background. I don't know what's happening. So what people say is that the man was boasting that we have the strongest currency in the region. In this region, in SADC, the RTG, as he called it, is the strongest currency in the region. So we have a too strong currency. This is the video that is circulated. But when you go to the original video, something happens in the original video. There's a sentence that whoever cut that video, very cleverly, I might add, edited out. Because what ED said, in this region, our currency is the strongest, and it makes our exports expensive. So if you go to the other video that's been circulated, that part where it says this makes our exports expensive is removed. So that it sounds like he's boasting about a too strong currency, when in fact, he was saying that we need to devalue our currency, because when it's strong, it's not a good thing, because currencies that are strong make your economy more expensive in terms of exports. So you see how people can manipulate videos and totally change the meaning just by changing a few, how many words are those, like 5 words. Someone edited the video and removed it makes our exports expensive. And that totally changed the meaning of that video. So right now, when people look at that video, they say ED actually boasted about a currency that's weak, but he was boasting that it's too strong, when in fact he was saying, no, let's devalue our currency. So we can argue about that, but we need to argue on the basis of facts of what he actually said and what he actually meant to say. So we are also going to see a lot of deep fake technology. Unfortunately, I can't play video here, but there's technology now that will make it seem I can have a picture of Victoria Rusizo here and use a video of her talking, but it would actually not be Victoria at all, to be someone else just playing her. And this is going to be a real factor in elections in the future once Zimbabweans are able to master this technology. Already it's being used by advertisers and so forth, but it's something that we need to look out for going into the future. So let me just give you an example. This is something that circulated again 2019 during the riots. If you remember, by January 2019, there were fewer riots, and someone claimed that these were guns being shipped into Zimbabwe by what he called a former G40 minister. So as soon as you look at that picture, you already have clues, right? You can see that there are guys there that are dressed in a way that suggests maybe they may not be local. So you want to check this. So what do? Step one, you save that picture in your phone. Once you save that picture in your phone, you can do a Google reverse image search. There's an app called TinEye, TINIYE, that you can download onto your phone, or something called image search as well, that you can also download onto your phone. So once we have that picture in your phone, put it into that app and you ask it to search, it actually searches that picture that you've received on your WhatsApp group, your church WhatsApp group, your school friends WhatsApp group, and people will be claiming that this is a gun, this is a load of guns at Bybridge, when in fact, when you search, use Google reverse image search, it shows that these pictures were actually taken in Nigeria years ago, nothing to do with Zimbabwe whatsoever. So these are things that actually happen, especially around elections, people manipulating pictures and using pictures out of context. We've seen that before when Zupco launched their train service last year. Someone claimed that on the first day of the launch, the Zupco had already packed up somewhere in Harare. But when you do a reverse image search again, it turned out that the picture was actually from 2019 and nothing to do with Zupco whatsoever. This is also another example. This picture circulated quite widely in Zimbabwe, the picture on the left, people saying that this is Parerenya to a hospital, people are dying of COVID, and there was a lot of alarm around that picture. But again, this was a picture from Guinea, and it had nothing to do with Zimbabwe. So these are some examples of some of the stuff that we are going to have to deal with as fact checkers. Once you get a picture, always download it onto your phone. Like I was saying, you can use Google. It has a reverse image search by image application on there. You put it through there and it will crawl the internet and look for places where that picture has appeared before, so that you are able to check for yourself whether that picture is recent or not. And that's it. Thanks very much. If you got any questions, I'll be happy to take you through them.
Well, thank you very much, Ranga, for that very informative presentation about fact checking. In fact, all of us should be fact checkers, particularly us in the media. As I said before, that it's sometimes sad to see us disseminating false information, even in families, when actually they can depend on us to say, we've received this information, let's check with Ranga in the family whether that is true or not. So that was very, very informative, Ranga. And I liked what you emphasized on regarding context. Most of our stories, they lack context. You know, a story is written or is reported on radio, TV, but you may fail to fully appreciate it because context would have not been given so that you appreciate it in the correct context. So you emphasized that context is important, and that's very good. You also emphasized the importance of research, that we should read widely, that we should listen or watch so that we are informed. Because when you're not informed, when you're not researching, when you're not reading, you are likely to be spreading fake news because it is from your reading, from your understanding, that you can quickly spot something as being out of context or as being a lie. So that was very, very important. And you also emphasized on verification, that always verify the information that you receive. And you don't verify from one source, but verify from a number of sources so that before you yourself also pass on that information, you'd have verified to check whether it is true. And I've recognized some of the pictures that you shared with us. Indeed, they caused alarm and despondence when they were circulated. And also, just to know the basics about the society we live in, I'm glad that you mentioned that generally, before we go any further, you start from the basis that politicians are liars, they are biases, at times they lack integrity and accountability. You know, not that it is true, but it is coming from somewhere. So you as a reporter, it's important then to check these things whether, you know, in a particular instance, they are true or not true. You may have your own biases, but unfortunately for you, if you are reporting about someone, don't show those biases. Report the truth. You know, we know your biases, we know you support this and that, but if you're in the role of a journalist, if you're in the role of a media practitioner, show that you are objective and you're not biased. Of course, at times that is very, very difficult to implement. And I also thanks Ranga for explaining the differences between disinformation, misinformation, and malinformation. All are tantamount to falsehoods and misinformation, but they are different, you know, in approaches. That this one we can call disinformation, this one is misinformation, and that one is malinformation. I think the one with mal, it even shows some malpractice or some maliciousness and so forth when you are disseminating that information. So I'd like to thank our presenters today. We've elaborated on some of the issues that I did talk about at the beginning of our presentation. That is Victoria, Emilia, and Ranga. And right now I'll give you a few minutes to ask Ranga anything that you think you want to be clarified. Let me read some of the comments that you've made. Can I see the top comment? I agree with Jinang. Fact-checking is a must, especially when it comes to media. We just forward whatever has been forwarded, then the wrong information it was spread. So yeah, I did mention as well that at times we as media practitioners, we also adopted this habit of just forwarding something that we've not even read and checked ourselves. So thank you very much for that one, Amanda, you were also, Amanda Nyama, you were also referring to what Jinang had said. Then Jinang, you come back and you say, we as citizens will also have a challenge with journalists. Why do they publish wrong information and translate information the other way around? This then results in more women not wanting to be involved, as Mrs. Rujido said earlier on. They only focus on my marital status rather than attributes. We need to change that. That's a very useful comment there, Jinang, that you have put across. Then Bernadette Sasa says, journalists must be journalists and not puppets to some political parties. That's your comment. And then Margaret Sangweme also came back very informative segment there. Thank you. So if there are no other comments, we really thank you for your active participation. And now it is my pleasure to thank you all for coming over to this workshop, and also to thank Gender and Media Connect for organizing this very useful workshop, and also to keep on reminding you that you should visit the Gender and Media Connect website for some of the information on these things that we're talking about. And if you happen to pass through the office, there are quite a number of booklets that can also help you. Remember, I made reference to a booklet, Media Skills for Women Using Digital Platforms, a practical guide, very, very useful indeed. And then Counting the Gains, Women Leaders, the Footprints, that profile some of the top women in our country, which is useful for the girl children and those who are rising. And then Media Skills Coaching Handbook, a guide for women, again, another very useful tool. So on behalf of Gender Media Connect, I would like to thank you all. This is your colleague, John Masugu, signing off.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Masuku. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining the webinar. I hope you have taken some notes, and I hope you also be able to cascade the information that you have learned here to other community members and also fellow journalists. Once again, I would like to thank you on behalf of Gender Media Connect and say have a very fruitful day, and thank you very much. We can now leave the meeting. Thank you.